Hi, I'm retired NYPD Detective Vic Ferrari, and welcome to NYPD Through the Looking Glass podcast, where you get unique insight into the New York City Police Department. Before we get started, I encourage you to check out my Amazon author page, where you can find my series of behind-the-scenes NYPD books. They're $10 paperback, $2.99 ebook download, including my latest and greatest NYPD Laughing in the Line of Duty. As a matter of fact, I have this up for 99 cents ebook download through the weekend. Also, non-NYPD related, but Confessions of a Catholic high school graduate, and that's me getting chased out of a confessional. That really happened. That'll be 99 cents ebook download. So today's guest is a retired NYPD detective who's written a great book about her police career. It's called 20 and Out, a compilation of chaos experienced while serving 20 years in the New York City Police Department. I'd like to welcome Marique Bartolos to the show. How you doing?
Hey Vic, how's it going? Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
I'm doing great. You got a great book, and I want you to introduce yourself and tell us a little something about yourself, where you grew up and how you got into the NYPD.
So I grew up on Long Island in Malvern, New York. I went to New Paltz College. I went to John Jay College, and somewhere along the line, I decided that I wanted to be a cop in the city. I wanted to be outside. I liked the adrenaline rush, the excitement. So I went into the academy and I graduated. I went in 2002, July, graduated at the end. And then I started my career and just kind of bounced around all over the place and had a lot of fun.
Now, you said your dad was an NYPD detective. Was that one of the reasons you wanted to become a cop, like seeing him come home and hearing the stories?
Yeah, he didn't really talk too much about the job, but I saw, I mean, we live the rotating nine squad chart.
I
And
do that.
sometimes he would tell, yeah, the chaos of no sleep forever, but sometimes he would tell us a few things here and there. And I just thought it was just interesting work. And I didn't feel like it was ever a time of getting boring. I wanted to go into law. I started taking law classes and stuff, but I said, I don't want to read case law for the next 30 years. I'm going to be falling asleep at my desk. So I said, you know what, let me try being a cop and get out there and helping people and, playing cowboys and Indians and all
Right.
that stuff. So I thought that'd be kind of cool. So it worked out. I got lucky.
I always say the same thing, too, that I was very lucky in the right place at the right time. How did your father take it when you told him that you wanted to become a police officer?
He said, are you nuts? Are you crazy? You don't want to do this job. And I said, that makes me want to do it even more. Forget about it. I'm in. So that was it. Yeah.
Did you have any brothers and sisters that followed you into the job, or
No, they went different routes. They teaching and stuff. So I was the only one who kept the path of the family in.
kept that torch burning?
Yeah, yeah. Tried to represent.
So you got a great title, 20 and Out, a compilation of chaos experience while serving 20 years in the New York City Police Department. Where did you come up with the
Thank you.
name for that book? And explain 20 and Out.
So 20 and out for the guys who aren't cops, it's a common phrase that cops use that you do your 20 years, which is required by the city for contracts to get your pension, and then you get the heck out of there. Literally, get the hell out of Dodge. But so that seemed to kind of apply to me because that the picture on the cover, which I guess we
Could you
can
hold
get
up a
into.
copy? Could you hold up a copy of
Oh,
your book, please? I mean, that's a
so
great
that's
cover. It's got
yeah.
your uniform, you got your detective shield going. You know what that looks like? That looks like, well, I was going to say you work in a detail, but I don't think you're wearing a vest. So that's probably
No.
in the precinct parking lot.
This picture I was at, it was very towards the end of the career. I was just burnt out and done. And we
It
had
says
to
it.
do, yeah, like I'm just done. I'm just sweating. I'm airing out my armpits. I'm dying. We were in a house doing a search warrant, looking for a gun, and I'm just like, you know what? I don't even want to do this anymore. I'm exhausted. It's 1,000 degrees in here. I stuck my head in the freezer to cool off because I'm like, there's no air in this place. It was 99 degrees. And I came out and I'm like, I gotta get out. And that was where I kind of saw the picture afterwards when I started writing the book. And I'm like, yeah, it's like you do your 20 and you get out. And that picture kind of, I felt encompassed what a whole career in the NYPD kind of does to you. You're young and fresh and your patches are nice and clean or whatever. And you're like rubbing them on the walls, trying to get them dirty so you don't look like such a rookie when you hit the street. And by the end of it, you're just like, I give up. I'm just done. So it was fun, but it's exhausting. It wears on you.
So your book 20 and Out, what I get a kick out of, there was a lieutenant in my office, and he was one of these guys, he stayed too long, and his expression was 40 and out. And we used to look at him because he had like 35 years on. I'm like, when is this friggin' guy going to retire? Like, his kids are grown. His wife is retired. And unfortunately, he hung around too long. and they pretty much made him so uncomfortable that he eventually retired. And it's sad because he stayed too long. He didn't get to enjoy his retirement, and the guy wound up dropping dead of a heart attack riding his bicycle like 2-3 years after he retired. And it was like, what was that all for?
Right. It's a shame.
20 and out says it. I mean, you do your 20 and you get the hell out of there.
You start a second life. Yeah.
Now, as a kid growing up in Long Island and you join the NYPD, and for those of you that don't know, a lot of people, they join the NYPD because there's up to 30 to 40,000 members, so your odds of getting hired are better. But what happens a lot of times is everybody wants to go to the smaller police departments. They use the NYPD as a springboard. Did you ever think about going to Nassau or Suffolk counties?
No, I was city all the way. I love the city. I love being a cop in the city. And I mean, I like the dark blues. You can't go wrong with the dark blues. I wasn't really a big fan of the uniforms over in Nassau and Suffolk, so I said I'm going to stick with the dark blues. My heart was there. It was good. It was gritty. It was real. I really enjoyed it. It was good.
Yeah, I remember being in the police academy, and there were guys and girls in their early 20s, and they had no intention of staying in the NYPD any longer than they had to. They're like, I'm already on the Nassau list. I'm on the Suffolk County list. I'm getting out of here. And some of them did they were in field training, and they went to Nassau and Suffolk County. And you and I were talking the other day, and you blew my mind because for those of you who don't know, the NYPD Police Academy used to be on 20th Street and 2nd and 3rd on the Lower East Side of Manhattan. And that's where Marique and I went to the same police academy. But then you explained to me they built the new academy, and you blew my mind what you were telling me about how the recruits in the police academy are treated differently than we were. Could you kind of just go into those differences?
So I'm sure it was the same for you. When we went to the academy, if you drove there, you were lucky because the parking was blocks away and very few people drove, right? So you took the Long Island Railroad to the subway and then you walked. And they gave you a bag that weighed probably around, 120 pounds, right? It was this, and you had the worn pant sides because you would walk with it and would wear your leg pants down, and everybody be leaning on one side depending on the bag with those little, the ice cream man hats on, walking through Manhattan, and everybody looks at you, and it's like, you look like a moron. So you're walking through, and you get the calluses on the bottoms of your fingers because you're carrying that heavy bag, and you're standing on the muster deck when it's 1,000 degrees at attention for 45 minutes. And, it was a great experience because you were in the city that you were, you're walking in the subways and everything. And it kind of toughened you up because you had to carry that bag to every class. You were bringing it into the gym. You had to, there was no air conditioning in the gym. So when you were taking a shower, it was 1,000 degrees. You were still sweating. Then you had to stand at attention, dripping sweat. It was brutal. It was a brutal 6 months, but you had fun with it. You had your buddies in your company and it was a good time. So I had to go to the academy a bunch of times to do training for animal cruelty. So I walk in there and I'm like, first of all, this place is gorgeous. The floors, the new police academy.
Where is that?
Right. It's in northern Queens. I forget exactly where it is, but it's in northern Queens. It's off I don't know, Van Wyck or whatever the road. I forget now. It's amazing how quickly you forget, but it's gorgeous. The building is gorgeous. Like the floors are waxed. You walk in and you're like, they have like custodians that actually clean stuff up. And then I'm walking and I'm like, there's elevators. And I'm like, remember, you couldn't use the elevator when you were a recruit. You couldn't even go near there. You had to go up the stairs. And I see like a couple of recruits going near the elevator. I said, I don't even know what this is. Then they have lockers. These guys have lockers to keep their stuff in. The classrooms are gorgeous. They have forget it. They have state of the art. Then I go into the training area. They have like a mock courtroom where you can go in and actually it's like a real courtroom where you can practice testifying. They have a police car with like trees and a whole like little mini city thing, kind of like Rodman's Neck, but at the academy. They stepped it up to the next level. But at the same time, you have these guys coming out and they aren't really hardened because they have like a parking lot where they can park their car and they're not like dragging through the city on the subway and trying to squeeze past people and, all that other stuff. And I felt like we had it hard, it was a little brutal for us and these guys had it a little bit easier. No offense to them. I'm sure it was still rough, but they had water bottles in the gym. So if you fell out of the run, you needed a drink. Meanwhile, we had the Chinese restaurant down the block that some of us would go eat at. So you go have Chinese. And if you had PE after you had Chinese and you start running, your tongue is stuck to the roof of your mouth from the salt. And you just, you're running through the gym dying and God forbid you fall out, you can't fall out of that run. The instructors are going to scream at you. Now these guys get water breaks, you know, changing times.
I was in the police academy towards the end, and I remember we had just finished the gym, and the lieutenant that was in charge, I'm not going to say his name, but he comes down, and they were having a blood drive downstairs. And basically, we got strong on to giving blood
Yes. Yeah.
after running, running and push-ups. I mean, listen, I always say I was not a Navy SEAL condition when I went into the police academy, but it wasn't anything I couldn't do. But we had just done a full workout. Then they're like, if you don't give blood, we're going to make you come back and do return roll call. So it was I'll never forget, it was a Friday. So my buddy and I are like, all right, we'll give blood. We gave blood, and then we got a six-pack for the ride back to the Bronx. And they said, yeah, don't drink. Don't drink any alcohol. We had the 2 idiots do. We got a six-pack for the ride back and then went bar hopping.
That's good. Your tolerance is lower.
Oh, I know. Yeah,
Yeah.
less. You spent less money. And I remember also in the police academy, when you walked the halls, you had a square. Like if you
Yes.
made a turn, you had to do like that military turn.
The
I
left
wonder if
face
they
and
have
right
to do that
face.
now.
I didn't notice that too much. I didn't notice that. I felt like they still do the make a hole, when like remember when you had somebody coming through when you were a
Gangway.
rookie, it's like make a hole, we got to, you got to get out of the way of whoever it was that was coming. It didn't matter who they were, civilian clothes, they could have been a
Could be the
mom of some
janitor,
recruit.
right?
Yeah, you don't know. It's like just make a hole. You were a plebeian, you were a nobody, so you had to make way. But the hallways in the new police academy are so big that's not even an issue. It's like it's just enormous. They have the lunchroom is like ridiculous. They have like state of the art food. You can get like
Come
chopped
on.
salads and sandwiches. It's like I went to the academy. I was having smushed up peanut butter and jelly that was hot from sitting at the bottom of my bag for 5 hours. But yeah, it's beautiful. They did a good job. Yeah.
That's unbelievable. So now you graduate from the police academy. How did you wind up in transit, and how did you find out you wound up in transit?
Oh gosh. Well, if the guys from my company are watching, I'm sure they remember this day. So one of the last days, I think, in the academy, they tell you where you're going. So they give you like the dream sheet. You could pick like 3 places you wanted to go. So I put the 7-5, the 8-3, and the 7-3, which are all Brooklyn North, busy
Busy
houses. I want to,
precinct.
if I'm gonna be a cop, I'm gonna be a cop. I want to learn. And so they make the announcements or whatever, and they get to my name, and they're like Monzert, which is my maiden name. They're like, you're going to Transit District 20. And I started hysterical crying. I'm not even embarrassed to admit it. I was hysterical crying. I'm like, this is some messed up stuff. Who did I piss off that I got sent into the basement of the subway hell? I said, all right, I got to make the best of it. What am I going to do? So I go to there, and I mean, the guys, they were great. They were old timers, dinosaurs. Forget about it. They had been in the subway before the hostile takeover of the NYPD taking over transit. So they were just like, they just knew the system. They knew how to work it. They knew where all the rooms were and everything. And they were like, they were great. They were great cops, but you were kind of on your own. They didn't have a lot of manpower down there. And I think we had like 20 of us go. And, you went there and you kind of just looked for people hopping the turnstile, and you dealt with a lot of homeless people. I mean, like, I remember we had this homeless guy who was like, everybody called on him all the time. He was missing an eyeball. So like his eye was dripping goo all the
Fluid, yeah.
time. And he had like, some type of testicular issue where he had like one giant elephant, and it would always like hang out of the bottom of his shorts. So you're like, oh, here we go again with this guy. I got to go deal with this guy. And it's like, like you try and be nice. These people are in a bad spot, but it was rough because it wasn't as busy as the type of police work. It was just a different animal down there. And I just, it wasn't for me. I did like a year there, and I was putting in transfers to get out and to go to a precinct.
Did they have TPF when you were there?
What is that?
So they had a thing in transit when I was relatively new to the job. It was called TPF, Tactical Patrol Force. It was supposed to be an elite unit, but they referred to themselves as those poor fucks. As TPF. So I guess they didn't have that when you were there.
No, no. No, I never heard of that, but that's great. That's hysterical.
What's the wildest thing you ever saw in transit? Like, did you have any jumpers or someone pissing on the third rail or?
One time we had this old guy. He was trying to commit suicide, so he walked down onto the subway track. So now you have a picture like it's rush hour, right? The subway's packed. You can't even have room on the platform to stand. People are ready to fall over waiting for the train to come in. And here's this poor old guy shuffling around. He goes onto the tracks. Now people are mad. They don't even care that he's trying to commit suicide. They're like, you're holding up the trains. We can't get to work. Get this guy out of here. So, so he was trying to commit suicide and he was using his cane to touch the third rail, but his cane had a rubber tip on the bottom of it. So he kept slamming his cane into the third rail. So we get there and I'm going on the tracks and I'm like, he doesn't even realize that he can't. Like, I felt so bad for this guy. So, EMS came and they took him or whatever. So that I felt bad for that guy. But we had another time we had like there was a suspicious substance on the train. There was like white stuff on the train. It was right after 9/11. It was after those anthrax attacks. Everybody was like hyper nervous or whatever. And it was like somebody comes on and they were like, one of the bosses, she's like, that's that shit is comet. Get this train moving. Get this out of here. It was like because everybody was so hyper nervous. It was like every little thing was a suspicious package. So there was a lot of the if you see something, say something. There was a lot of phone calls like that. But I think the blackout that we had when I was in transit was like the worst day. I think it was a
Oh, was that
blackout that lasted. It
2003,
was like the
right?
Northeast. Yeah, it was a Northeast blackout. It lasted for like, I don't know, a couple of days or whatever, but it was just I was there at work. We had just had the roll call. I was doing 4 to 12s. So I said, all right, I'm driving the boss that day, which was very rare for a rookie to be driving the boss. But the bosses would take one of us every once in a while just to show us, the top side and to go to the different stations and stuff. So he's like, just hang out. I got some work to do behind the desk and then we'll go out. I said, all right. So I go into the muster room and I'm sitting there and the muster room is basically, they got the soda machines and everything and the chairs. So I'm like, let me grab a soda. So I throw a couple of dollars into the machine, which I'm sure in every precinct in the city, they're notorious because they take your money and they don't give you a soda. So I throw the
And
two
then you can't
dollars
find the
in.
guy running the club to give you your money back.
You never find the club guy. He's never working. I'm like, you got to be kidding. It's like, so I throw the money and I hit the button, nothing comes out. And I'm like, what the fudge? You gotta be kidding me. So I hit every button, nothing's coming out. So now I'm like, I'm shaking the machine. I rip off the sign that says, don't shake the machine. I'm like, to hell with this. I'm like thirsty. I'm shaking the machine. And I'm like, what's going on? So I go outside to go look for the club guy to be like, I need a soda. And everything's black because the front doors of the precinct were glass. So you could look into the station and it's black. There is not a light on. I don't even see emergency lights. And I mean, as a kid growing up, my mom worked in Lower Manhattan, so I was always going into the subways. I grew up kind of in the city, so I'm like, I'd never seen this before. So I go to the desk and it's chaos. The phones are ringing. The sergeants, everybody's like, "What's going on?" And they're like, "We got a blackout system wide." And I'm like, "Oh boy, this is not good because the trains don't have. It's the summertime. The trains don't have power. They don't have air conditioning. There's people on there. It's like people coming home from work. This is no good." So for the next, I don't even know how many hours, probably 10 hours, who knows. We would go into different subways, walk down the subway tracks, open up the emergency door of the subway, lead people out, and then I used the flashlight to lead people. I would take like 10 at a time, everybody hold a hand, stay away from the third rail, walk them to like the emergency ladder, walk them back into the station, and then go back. My battery dies on my flashlight because as cops, it's like, you got all this gear, but do you check your batteries? No.
Never.
So the last time I had put batteries in was when I graduated the academy. I'm like, these things are like a year old, they die. Now I'm using my little cell phone. At the time we had the flip phone. So I had like the little tiny square of light walking through. And I'm saying to myself, you know what's going to happen? Whoever was driving this train is going to forget that he didn't put the emergency brake on. The power is going to come back on. And this train's going to barrel at me and take me out at 90 miles an hour. And that's going to be the end of the story. But luckily, nobody got hurt. We were able to empty out a bunch of trains and, helped a lot of people. It was interesting. But I mean, I walked into a bar. I was like, that's like a faux pas. You
Big
don't
no
really in
no.
uniform walk into a bar. But I'm like, to heck with this, man. I need to wash my face. I am sweating. I walk into a bar. The bartender's like, you want a beer? I'm like, no. Yeah. That's the last thing I need is somebody to
Right.
picture of me like, guzzling a Bud Light on the subway or something. I said no. So yeah, it was interesting. It was a lot of fun stuff that happened. I got into a couple of interesting fights down there, and it was good. I worked with a lot of funny people, characters, like it always is. But that was the end of that for me. I had to get out of there.
How long were you in transit before you went to the 105 in Queens?
I was there for like a year and a couple of months. I think I ended up April of 2004. I went to the 105th precinct in Queens.
So what was that like compared to transit? Explain to people the difference between working in transit. Now you go into a precinct.
Transit doesn't have really any of the issues that a precinct does. You don't have the domestics. You don't have in transit, you have fare beaters, you got homeless people. Once in a while, you have like a suspicious person or something, disorderly people, drunk people. But you don't have accidents in the subway, right? Like the PARs, the old police accident reports. You don't have the domestics. You don't There's some larcenies and stuff, but you never had shootings. There was no shootings in the subway. You didn't have any of that stuff. I remember I had like a domestic in the subway. I had like a girlfriend boyfriend fight on the train, and they come to me. And at the time, the phones didn't work under the ground, so I had to go on the payphone and call my friend who was a cop in a precinct and be like, "I got two guys, this guy and a girl, they're fighting. What am I supposed to do? I'm gonna kick them topside and give them to the precinct. I don't even know what to do here." So I went to the precinct, and I remember my first radio run in the patrol car. There was no foot post in the precinct, so I was in a radio car, and like my first job was a 30 at knife point, a robbery in progress at knife point. And I'm on the radio, and I'm like, first of all, the radios didn't work in transit, so to be able to hear Central talking to me and she hears me, I'm like, this is great. I got a radio that works. Like I don't have to scream at the top of my lungs so somebody could find me. This is good stuff. And then I look at the guy who's training me. I said, how the hell do we handle this? What do we do? And he's like, you've been a cop for like a year. You don't know? I said, no, I had no freaking idea, bro. I came from the subway, man. We didn't have this kind of stuff going on down there. We had like the military guys because it was post 9/11. So we had the army guys down there with the, big guns and everything. So nobody did anything down there then. So that was my first like real radio run, handling a real job. And I'm like, man, this is awesome. I made the right decision. It was good.
So yeah, you were happy you made the jump. We call it a rollover, going from transit to a regular precinct.
Yeah, that was the best decision of my career because I mean, transit's good for people. There's a lot of overtime, there's a lot of work down there. It's good for some people, but it wasn't the type of police work that I was looking to get into. So once I got to the precinct and I was running around and busy, I mean, everybody thinks like the Queens Marines, you guys didn't really do nothing. It's soft out there. I thought the same thing. But the problem is that a lot of the people that were like from Manhattan after 9/11, they moved to Brooklyn, and the people that were from Brooklyn got moved into Queens. So everybody that I was dealing with, they all had Brooklyn addresses because they were all moving. So it was like a shift in, I guess, the demographics or whatever you want to call
Yeah.
it of the place. And it was just that precinct was busy. You would handle 30 plus jobs in the summer regularly every single day. It was a blast. You never got bored.
Well, obviously you were an active cop because you went to the SNU unit and then the anti-crime unit. Can you explain what a precinct SNU unit is?
Yeah, so when I got to the 105, you do patrol, you do your load thing. I do like 4 bys on patrol for a few years. Then I did domestic violence for like 6 minutes. That wasn't my thing. I was like, I got to get back to patrol. So then you go to the conditions unit where you're like writing people summonses. You drive around those big stupid NYPD vans that, maneuver like the Titanic. So you're driving around writing people summonses for pissing and all that other stuff, which is fun. You see the drunks and you hang out with them. And you're like, yeah, okay, you get your regulars. So then after that, I went into this new unit, which was street narcotics enforcement. So it was like you're not going after major big distributors. You're going around the street level guys who are selling on the streets, right? You gotta like keep the streets clean. You don't want to have like open sales and stuff. So that was a lot of fun because back then the weed was illegal. People went to jail for weed. So you would do busts for weed, you would do coke, heroin. But it was good. I mean, you were making like 8, 9 collars a month at least in that unit with the guys, and it was great because it was like 5 guys and the boss, and we would go out and we would just see what we found and look for trouble. Really try and stop it before it happened.
So you guys weren't sending an undercover to a guy to make a buy. You were watching. You're basically watching with binoculars from an OP post to see the guys just standing on a corner hitting people off, and then you guys would roll in and grab them.
Yeah, we would do that. We would do car stops a lot of the time. It was rough in the 105 because there wasn't like a lot of projects. It was private houses.
That's tough to set
So
up.
it's tough to set up on stuff because they make you right away. Because what do they gave us 3 Impalas or like 2 Impalas and like an unmarked van. And like the perps would see us before we even knew that they were like, you don't see them, they see you. Some of them even had our license plates memorized. They would know what our license plates were. And they're like, yo, the popo's on the street, here comes the 5. So it was tough to try and catch people, but there was, I mean, we did a couple of good setups. I think I wrote about one of the stories in my book. We got busted at Comstat. So for people who don't know Comstat, it's like a weekly thing where they look at the stats of different boroughs, each particular precinct sometimes get called up, and they look at like how you addressing crime, what issues you up in, what are you down in, what are you doing to keep it down, whatever. So we get wind one Comstat that they took pictures around this one set that we knew about. Everybody knows where they're selling the drugs, but they know us, so they just disappear when they see us coming down the block. So it's hard to get them. So they gave some guy, one of the cops that works downtown, I guess, a nice van, beautiful cable truck. You would never know that this guy's a cop. He parks half a block away from the dealers and is taking pictures of them. And then this goes to Comstat, and it's like, look at these guys. They're dealing in open market. How are you not doing anything about it? And it's like, well, give me that cable van, and I'll sit there all day and pick peas off. That's not it's easy, but so we had to come up with a plan. So the plan was we're going to go sit on the roof of this supermarket, and one guy's going to be the watcher, and the rest are going to do the takedowns. So it was summertime. I needed to work on my tan. I said, I'll go sit on the roof and I'll call it out. I'm going to go up there in my wife beater, and we're going to, we'll see what we could get. So this particular time we got a bunch of guys, and the dealer was this pretty well-known guy down there. We all kind of knew him. He wasn't a bad guy, but he took off on the cops when they went to go grab him. And he hopped the fence and landed on a motorcycle and broke his leg. So, and now he's my collar, right? So I go back and they're like, yeah, you guys refusing to go to the hospital. And I'm like, well, if he's refusing, let him refuse. Who cares? I get there and I go into the cells, and I could see his bone sticking out of the skin in his calf muscle. And I said, bro, you gotta go to the hospital, man. You're not even gonna get through EMS at central booking. Like, I gotta send you to the hospital, bro. Like, you're not gonna. And he's standing up there and he goes, no, ma'am, I'm fine. You can just send me right through. And I'm like, yeah, no, I can't do that. You got to go to the hospital. I'm like, I'll get you paperwork done. I'll try and print you and get you out of here or whatever. But I said, you know what? I give you respect, dude, because not only did you like break your leg and you're trying to stand here and be like, you're fine and take the pain, but most guys would have been like, yo, the police beat me up. They busted me up. Look at what they did to me. I'm like, and instead of making up stuff like that, you're like, yeah, I jumped a fence. I tried to run from you guys. And, so I would see that guy once in a while for the rest of my career. And I always gave him respect because I'm like, you know what? You tried to run, fair enough. You busted your leg. You tried to take it like a man, and you didn't try and make up some stories. So he was all right.
Yeah, every now and then you come across a perp that's honorable.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
They're far and few between, but
Yeah.
every now and then. So, in addition to SNU, you worked in the precinct anti-crime unit, which is you're driving around in an unmarked car, going after crimes in progress. In the 105, what was some of the conditions that you guys addressed in anti-crime?
At the time, we had a lot of guns. We had a lot of shootings. We were up in shootings. We were up in robberies. So we were looking for, and then a lot of gang beefs. So we would look for, guys, we would just watch people, guys walking on the street, see how they walk. Because when you're a cop long enough and you watch people enough, you can kind of see, when they're carrying. You can see that they walk a little funny, they reach without knowing that they're reaching, and you can see that they have a gun. It's like a stealth thing. It's like they can't help it. They're like, is it still there? They got to make sure, or they're running, and then so we would sometimes. I mean, there was always the beef in the precinct between the patrol and the crime, and there's a robbery in progress, and crime takes the collar, and those guys are scumbags, and
Yeah.
there was always those beefs going on and stuff. But I mean, I would try, and if I respond, I'd be like, I'll take the complaint report. I know you guys are busy. I did patrol. I get it. So, but sometimes you would mooch off of the radio if it was like winter time and you needed your collars or whatever. So, you got to do what you got to do. But yeah, so we would try to stop trouble before it happened. Hit the big gang spots, and eventually it got to the point where they stopped carrying. I mean, I was told by a couple of perps, we don't carry in the 5. We know y'all are gonna toss us. We go over if we're gonna carry. We keep our shit at home. And I'm like, oh, okay. That's not helping me out, bro. You gotta.
Yeah, maybe you could carry on a Thursday.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Can we get an agreement here? I'll buy you a sandwich when I lock you up. Just help me out.
Speaking of
But
buying a purpose sandwich, you actually worked in the precinct's field intelligence unit where cops are locking people up. Your job is to come in and to debrief them. talk to them, see if they have any information, see if they want to cooperate, see if they want to work off a sentence, see if they want to be a confidential informant. What kind of cases did you work in the 105 as a field intelligence officer?
We did a lot. We did a lot of gun cases. We did a lot of narcotics, a lot of drug buys. We did two wires on different subjects,
On the
narcotics
precinct
and
level?
the fake credit cards at the precinct level.
That's
Yeah.
great.
Yeah, we did we worked with we worked with like OCCB guys. We did like we did joint investigations and stuff with other units, but yeah, we it was fun. It was a little bit of bribery, a little bit of convincing, a little bit of schmoozing. And I that was probably one of my favorite jobs in the NYPD of all of them. I mean, patrol was great because you get to work at 3 o'clock and 10 minutes later it's 11:30 and you're done.
Right.
It's like it goes by so quick. This was more like, all right, we got a couple of cases, we got to do surveillance, we got to do recon, we got to check it, check this stuff out. And it was something that I didn't really have a lot of experience with. It was kind of slowing it down. We had to slow it down and take steps and go slowly and building cases and, you know, convincing people to work with the police department and signing up informants. And I remember I think it was my first warrant that I did as a field intelligence officer. You do the recon. It was a place on Jamaica Ave, the Ave that they call it, right? So it was like an apartment on the second floor, right? So I did my recon during the day. So I said, all right, when we go to hit the door, there's a cell phone store and they have one of those flags in the front. I'm like, it's the door right after that flag. That was how I knew where I was going to tell ESU that's the door, right? So when do we go to do the warrant? We go to do the warrant at 6 o'clock in the morning when the store isn't open, so there's signing out there. So I'm driving down the block and I'm in the ESU bread truck, which, top speed is like 5 miles an hour. Like you're
It's like,
lumbering
yeah,
along.
it's like a
It's
U-Haul.
yeah, they're playing like, heavy metal rock in the back, ready to roll. I got, 10 cars behind me with all my guys ready to go. And I'm like, oh, gee, I don't know where I'm at. I don't know which is the door. And I'm like, bro, you got to drive slower, man. I can't see nothing. I don't know where's the cell phone store? So luckily I found the right door. We hit the right door.
Yeah.
Everything worked out okay. But I'm like, you know what? I'm going to do my recon from now on every different times of the day. So it was good because you had flexibility in schedule because some things were at night, some things were during the day, but it was I don't there's never a boring moment in any police work. It's really like sometimes you're sitting there, but then something will pop off. Like we were sitting watching surveillance on somebody's house, and the next thing you know, there's a fight. Somebody pulls out, a gun, or there's a drug deal or something. Next thing you know, you're in a foot pursuit over here, and it's like like hold on a second. I was just sitting having a cup of coffee. Now all of a sudden I'm involved in level one mobilization chaos. You don't really know what's going to happen.
That happened to me late in my career. I had 6 months to go, and the guy I was working with that day had like weeks to go before he could retire. And we were doing surveillance. We had an undercover working in a scrap metal processor, and we were off site just listening to the Kel. There was a bunch of us out there in different cars, and we're in a McDonald's parking lot. And just like you said, I turn around and there's two guys. One guy's got a gun out, the other guy is, and I said, "Oh shit!" And we were in the kind of neighborhood. If we stepped out of that car, it was on. So he goes, "What do you want to do?" I says, "Well, if we get out of the car, he's going to see us. It's on. We're going to shoot him." He goes, "What are you going to do?" I said, "I'm going to turn the car around." I says, "And if he sees us, I'm going to run him over with the car." He goes, "All right, that'll work." So I turned the car around, right? And then when they kind of turned and they didn't see us, then when we were able to run up
To get
on
the
him
jump on
and
them. Yeah.
take him, yeah. But like he goes, "What are you going to do?" He goes, "I'm going to run him over." Deadly physical force is deadly.
Yeah.
If I can run you over with this navigator, that's all the better that I got to shoot you.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the tricks of I did losing prostitution operations a
Did you ever
lot
do that?
at the precinct. Yeah, yeah, that was crazy because we would
Explain what
go.
that is. Explain what that is.
So prostitution is a quality of life issue. So they would have girls from the precinct who were cops dress up like hookers and go out there on the streets and try and make a deal with some guy and lock him up for soliciting a prostitute. So it was good in the summertime. It wasn't bad because it was nighttime. It was cool. In the wintertime, it was brutal because you're wearing these 6-inch heels. My feet are killing me. I'm freezing cold in a skirt. I'm like, this is what am I doing here? This is ridiculous. So one time we're down by Rockaway Boulevard, and I think it was Brewer, And we're walking on the corner or whatever, and a big Tahoe comes up. And I had done this a few times before. I had a new girl with me. I was training her how to do it. And you kind of had the ghost across the street watching you. You had the car set up for the takedown. It was kind of like it almost got boring to the point where it's like, okay, agreement made, give the signal, take them down. So the complacency gets dangerous because you're not expecting anything. So, it's like, oh, great, a Tahoe pulls up. So I see at the corner of my eye, the ghost like moves over a little bit so they don't lose eye contact with me or whatever. And these guys start talking, and I don't know, the hairs went up. I'm like, something ain't right. These guys are like real legit perps. I don't smell weed. I don't like the way they're talking. They've picked up prostitutes before. So now I'm nervous because I'm like, they might get wind that I'm not really a prostitute.
Right.
The job gives you like a handbook of like terms to use, like the pimp stick and the bottom bitch and all this stuff. And it's like, you're studying these prostitution terms. I'm like, this is what had happened to me. I don't even know. So, yeah, that was fun. So we get talking, we make the agreement. So I give the signal and I say, turn down the block where the takedown would be happening. So I start walking and I said, listen, tell them like something's up. Call the guys. Tell them these guys are legit perps. Something's wrong here. I just had a bad feeling. So we turn the corner and I'm waiting for the takedown and the cars aren't moving in. And I'm like, where are these guys? What's going on? I'm walking. And it's like I'm walking even slower than I normally would because I'm like, what is going on? So I turn the corner and there's the Tahoe. It's sitting there, engine's running. I see them looking at me in the side view mirror and I just keep walking and I'm like, I turn and I'm like, call these guys. What's going on? So I get to the car and they're like, get in. And the passenger who hadn't said a word to me the whole time is like, get in, B. What are you doing? Like he's getting loud with me. And I'm like, yo, my girl's got to call daddy and make sure. I think the price we agreed to, he's going to be mad. Like I'm trying to buy,
Right.
you got to think on your feet. And I'm like, what the hell is going on? So I see my girl go running across the street. So now I'm in the middle of this desolate road. I don't know where my people are. These two guys are mutts. I know there's a problem here. I'm like, I'm about to be kidnapped and nobody knows nothing. All of a sudden, the lights go on, the cars come out, the place is swarmed. So now I'm like, we don't have a vest on. We don't have guns. We're just out there in clothes. We're civilians, basically.
Hey.
We just have nothing. Yeah. So I have nothing, but I'm like, I got to make sure these guys aren't going to raise a gun and start shooting at my guys, so it was like a really hairy moment there, but it worked out well. The takedown went well. They got him in cuffs. They bring him back to the precinct. And it turns out they had bulletproof vests, duct tape, change of clothes. They had this whole thing in the back seat of the Tahoe. So, I mean, I don't even remember really how that ended up. I know the squad was going to talk to them and they were going through stuff, but I'm like, I wonder what the heck these guys were going to be doing. And they decided to like take a break for 10 minutes and grab a prostitute. And I don't know, hopefully you don't know what you prevent when you run into something.
So
you expect it to be just like you're getting some poor guy who just, he misses his wife and he just wants to date really quick. And next thing you know, what do we just prevent?
You're right, and people don't realize, like just like you said, you'll stop a guy on a car stop or something, and he's got a gun, and you don't know what you just prevented. Like, what was he going to do? Was it just for protection, or was that gun, he had a purpose for it?
Yeah. Yeah. The stuff like that I mean, I guess as you're talking too, I'm sure it's the same thing for you. Like the jobs that you ran into, like run through your mind and, stories that you know from work and stuff. But it gets hairy. You don't really know. You work with guys. I work with guys who got shot. You go to
Yeah.
cops' funerals and you're like, man, you just hope that it doesn't happen to you and you stay on your game. I wrote a couple of stories too. Like we had a guy that I don't know why. You get a feeling. You get this feeling sometimes when you're a cop and you just see something that just ain't right. And there's no other reason for it. I saw a car running on the side of the road and it was on like the service road to the belt. And I'm like, something's not right with this car. Let's pull up next to it and see what's up. And we look and the guy gives us the oh shit face.
Yeah.
The oh shit face for
Hairy
like a
eyeball.
split second. It's like, oh shit. And
Yeah.
then, and the real perps know how to hide it quick. They pull it back and they're like, yes,
Unless you
officer,
really,
how can I help
really
you?
startle them, like they're all into something, and then they realize
Yeah.
it's over.
Yeah. Then it's like they're going to run. You don't, but yeah. So this guy gives the oh shit face. And I said, all right, we got to go jump out on this guy. So we jump out and we go, it's him alone in the minivan. And my partner, who was my boss, and I go, my partner was on vacation. So it was me and my boss. It was an anti-crime. And we pull up, we get out, and my partner's talking to him, and I look in the passenger seat. I don't know why, my eyes just went there, and I see on the floor of the passenger seat a brick of Coke wrapped up. And I'm like, oh, sugar, what the heck, man? Like, I didn't even have coffee yet today. Like, I wasn't really looking for nothing. And now we got this guy. So I tell my boss, I go, yo, yank him. Like, we got to pull him out of the car. So, and for people who aren't cops, they know when you work with your partner for a while, especially when you're on a team, like with crime or with SNU, there's words, right? Like, my
Yeah.
thing used to be like, do me a favor. As soon as I started with do me a favor, people knew she's going to rip him out of the car. Like you kind of know. And so you'd have code words sometimes. Like, remember hot lunch? If you
Yeah,
find a gun, it's
everyone's
like,
got
yo,
their.
hot lunch. And like, you got your own lingo. So I'm like, yo, yank him. So he goes to pull him out of the car and the guy just takes off. So next thing we know, we're in like a vehicle pursuit, which is like kind of forbidden. And the NYPD don't really, we're following the car, right? As
You're
he's
talking
like
to an auto
fleeing down
crime
the road.
detective. We used to get into car
Yeah.
chases all the time.
All the time. Yeah. So we end up like he crashed into three cars so he crashes through a metal barrier, the chain link fence, full blown fight in the middle of a soccer field down in Rosedale. I mean, this guy was just a monster. It was a fight. I was kicking him in the side of the knee. I was doing like, like the karate moves that they teach you and like, just take his knee out. This
Yeah.
guy was just a rock. He wasn't moving anywhere. And like my boss and him, he fell. My boss fell holding on to him. So the guy was over him and I see him with his hands and I just drew down. I said, bro, get your hands off my effing part. Get your hands off him now. I had it aimed at his head. I said, I'm going to shoot him. But then I'm thinking to myself, the bullets do funny things. I'm going to shoot him. It's going to ricochet and it's going to hit my boss. And now I'm going to be like denied days off for the next 5 years because I shot my boss. Like, this is not going to turn out well for me. So thank goodness he freaking got off my boss. He's like, all right. So he goes running back to his car. He gets in his car. What we didn't realize is that when he ran through the fence and the metal barrier and the three cars that he hit, he went airborne and the axle on the front tire broke. So his tire was disconnected from the car. I didn't see it at the time. He didn't see it. So he goes in the car. So I'm punching this guy. We can't get this guy. He's just impervious to pain.
I've had that.
They feel nothing. I'm like, I probably could have shot him and nothing would have happened. He would have been fine. It's ridiculous. So I run around the side of the car because now he's reaching to go get the bag of cocaine. And I'm like, he's not going to empty out that bag of Coke. And now we lost like our collar. Forget this. So I run around the front of the car to go to the passenger side to get the bag so he can't reach it as my boss is pulling on him. And as I get to the front engine of the car, I hear the engine rev. And I can see it in this day. I look at him and he's looking at me and he's gunning the engine to run me over. Thank God, because I would have been like, splatter on the floor. And so I went over to the other side, doors locked. I'm trying to break the window. I have no gear on me. I lost all my gear in the fight. I have like a gun and like, I don't even have my radio. And I'm like, I can't break this window. Back to the other side. Long story, big fight. It took like 10 guys to get this guy down, but we got him handcuffed. And he ended up, he had broken a state trooper's arm in Pennsylvania. He was wanted or he was being looked at for like a homicide upstate New York. Like this guy was attached to all kinds of crazy stuff. And it was just from a random car stop. And like you said, you were in auto crime. We had you guys on you were chasing a stolen motorcycle. I don't know if you did that quite often. I feel like you're always going to lose the motorcycles, but you guys were chasing a motorcycle and you came over and we blocked the highway because he was coming up the Cross Island Parkway. And a bunch of us were in the middles of the lane. The traffic was stopped, so he's driving in between the lanes or whatever. And the guy in front of me takes a swing at him, like a fake swing. So he leans, loses control. He swings back into me. I grab his t-shirt to try and rip him off the bike, and him and the bike go flying on the floor. They hit my car and take my front bumper off of the marked patrol car. So now I'm like, damn it, man! Like now I got to report this as an accident now. Like now I'm gonna go. So he went sliding across the ground, and it was probably the only motorcycle that I know of that actually we caught the guy and were able to arrest them because I don't think you can ever catch those guys. They're amazing on those things.
Well, what we used to do is, so if you had a hit on a bike, what you try to do is, especially we always had unmarked cars, so we would follow them from behind. Hopefully they didn't see us. And then when they stopped in traffic, you'd either cut in front of them and throw open a door so he couldn't get around it. And then what you do is you just push. You don't try to grab him. You just push and use his weight against him on the bike and throw him down. But I've got dragged. We had an informant that used to give us stolen bikes all the time. We were up in Washington Heights, and this guy actually later went away for a homicide. and we jumped out of the car and he saw us, and it was it probably would have made an iconic photo with four guys hanging off the side of him, and he righted that bike, and we fell off like toys, like we just like fall, and he just went roaring down the block.
Yeah, those guys are amazing. You gotta give credit where credit's due. They do criminal acts, but sometimes they're really good at it.
I made a
But
lot of I made not a lot, but I made quite a few motorcycle arrests because we're easier.
yeah,
They were just easier to get, easy to catch. Like you said, it was always a challenge with the motorcycles, and there was more of a chance following or chasing. If God forbid they got hurt, the guy's going to lose a leg and sue you,
yeah.
or die. So we really didn't like chasing the motorcycles unless we absolutely had to.
Yeah, I don't know what else this guy was wanted for, if anything, but it was pretty funny because we had just gotten coffee and you think and I ended up having to go to accident retraining. It's always the coffee. Like
Oh,
you just got a cup of coffee, you just want to sit and then like the chaos hits. So now that I know it, I should have never had coffee when I was working because it would have been like a little less chaotic. But yeah, I had to go to accident retraining. They blamed me for the accident because he hit my car. I'm like, you got to be kidding me right now.
yeah, for those of you who don't know, in the NYPD, they take vehicle accidents very seriously, and no matter what happens, like she just said, she probably wasn't even in the car, but the bumper got taken off, so someone's got to go for accident retraining, and that's usually out in Floyd Bennett Field.
Yeah,
Right, so they
which
send you
is a
out to the
far
SLN in
drive.
Brooklyn, right?
Yeah.
And it's first thing in the morning, and Floyd Bennett Field's in the middle of nowhere. So for like, I lived in the Bronx, so I would have to get up at 4 o'clock in the morning to be out at Floyd Bennett Field at 7 o'clock in the morning, and it's a nonsense course. And then you get into a couple of accidents, they start throwing you on foot in the NYPD. They don't like accidents; it's bad for business.
Yeah, yeah, it cost them money and then the lawsuits and all the other stuff. I mean, it was just it sucks though because you drive in rush hour traffic both ways. It's like, it's I don't know. It was I tried not to get into too many accidents like that
No.
after I said I'm not leaving my car in the middle of the Cross Island Parkway for somebody to hit next time. We'll try and think of this a little better, but it was fun, I tell you that.
Oh, it's the adrenaline rush. So
Yeah.
eventually, from the 105 doing field intelligence, you go into a citywide unit of doing field intelligence, correct?
But I mean, it wasn't really, I was always precinct based, but we would go to different precincts. We would work with different, sometimes different units or whatever, depending on you kind of go where the case takes you. We had one case that went out to Suffolk County, so we work with those guys. So with that, you went where it took you. But after doing that for a few years, I went to the animal cruelty unit, which had just been formed. Um, so it was like me, one other guy, and the sergeant in this unit trying to create basically animal investigation at like a detective level where you would get the cases and you do the investigation, try and make the collars, which is, I mean, it's like impossible sometimes to create cases because you have a victim who can't tell you what happened. If you don't have cameras or witnesses or something, it's hard. And it takes a special level of expertise to be able to solve that stuff. So I, created the PowerPoint and did the teaching at the academy. And that's what I'm like, when I went to the academy, I'm like, look at this place. Look at this place. If I was able to eat like this in the academy, I would have been hopping fences like nobody's business. Like that, they got a salad bar. I was like, this is unbelievable. So I trained like bosses and cops and stuff in that. And it was rough to see. I had a dog that was raped by a broomstick handle that we had to deal with. A lot of dogs throwing down the trash receptacles. A lot of dog fighting. The bird fighting is
That's
big
what I was going to ask
too.
you. Did you work a lot of cockfighting and dog fighting cases?
Yeah, the cockfight. I mean, they're hard to get into. The people who do these fights, they're very organized. They're very underground. They don't talk about it. It's all encrypted stuff. And you have to get informants and work that angle. So being an FIO, it was easy for me because I kind of knew the deal of how to sign up people and use leverage to get people to work with you and convince them that it was the right thing to do. So we worked with Nassau County was one of the big cases that we had with dog fighting. But I wasn't really there too long. I was only there for like 9 months. So we started a lot of cases. I started cases with them, whatever, and then they carried it. But then you had the regular run of the mill animal cruelty. We had one. It was a cat. It was a 911 for a suspicious odor or a gas odor or something. My buddy calls me up. He's like, "You gotta come here. I got these cats in the basement. I don't know what's going on." So I go there and there's like 20 cats. They're in horrible conditions. They have ingrown toenails. The dust is so heavy you can see it in the air. It was 50 degrees in the house. Three of the cats were in these trap, neuter, and release cages, which are these tiny little cages that, it's for temporary to keep them there. They had been there for weeks. They were just confined. They couldn't even stretch out. Just, and the woman who was the rescuer was using it as a money thing. She was putting in money for all these major pet company places and getting grants and stuff, and she was using it for herself. And these animals were in horrific condition. And if it wasn't for this gas order, we would have never known. But it was good. The ASPCA came. Those guys were great. They cleared the scene out. They took the cats. They got them rehabilitated, and it was a happy ending for the cats. But it was really rough, the stuff that you see. I don't know. You see shootings and you see people get shot, and I've held the hands of people who are dying, and you see little babies with the shaken baby syndrome and stuff, and it's you just kind of put it out of your head. But with the animals, it kind of hit home for me. It was very frustrating because at least with human stuff, you can kind of find the culprit. You're going to find out who did it. You have the dying declaration. You have, people. With the animals, you don't have any of that stuff. Chain of custody is broken a lot. So you can't really do any prosecution, even if you know who it is. And it was very frustrating. And I said, you know what, I'm too emotionally invested in this. I can't separate myself from it. So, I got lucky. They put me back in the 105, and the girl who had replaced me as the FIO was getting promoted. So I just landed right back in my old spot, and I'm like, back to the fun field intelligence stuff. And then, it was good too, because by that time I had two kids, right? So I run into an old informant that we had dealt with before I left. This is like a few years later. So the informant comes into the office or whatever, and he sees me and he looks at me and goes, "Yo, you got thick." And the whole office, my boss, the other guy, the lieutenant, they all stop and they're like, "Oh shit." Because, and I'm like, all right, what am I going to say? Get out? Like, are you kidding me? Like, what the heck is wrong with you? But I said, yeah, I had a couple of kids, but how are you doing? You get like, that's bastard, but that's okay. It was, it is what it is.
As a result of all your investigative work, you were promoted to detective. What year did you get promoted?
Oh gosh. I think it was like 2013, 2012, 2013. I think it was 2013 I got promoted. They, I was a field intelligence officer at the time, and I think they asked for like three names per precinct of people who had done investigative stuff or whatever, and they were going to promote one of them. So, you wrote yourself up and you make yourself look like,
Yeah, of course.
all this crazy stuff. But I mean, I had a lot of stuff under my belt by that time. I had, uh, I ended up having like 400 arrests. I had a ton of gun collars, a ton of drug collars. You've been to court, you've testified, cross-examined, all that stuff. So I had so much experience, and they picked me, and I was amazed. They brought me down to the CO's office. My boss is like, the CO needs to talk to you. And I'm like, what the hell did I do this time? Because I'm like, I'm in trouble. I don't know what I did. So I go down there, and now I'm sweating. I have like the line of sweat. I'm like, here we go. I'm going to get suspended. This is no good. Because as the FIO, you work very closely with the CO. And I knew him. He was a great guy. But I'm like, this has never happened before. I'm in trouble. So we go in the office, and he's got the pissed off face. And he's like, sit down, Mons. And I'm like, oh shit. I'm like, I'm sorry. I don't know what I did. I'm sorry. And you're getting promoted. And I'm like, you bastards. I'm sitting here sweating. And I'm like, you don't even tell me this. So it was like, I was honored. I said, thank you. I appreciate it. It was awesome.
Could
And,
you please tell the story about when you got promoted at one police plaza with your friends and family, and the NYPD promotes in bulk, so there's a couple of hundred people getting promoted, how they mispronounced your name? That's
yeah.
a great story.
I'm still mad to this day. I don't know if that guy is watching, but I'm still mad at him. So, the promotion is a big deal in the NYPD. They do a nice job with it. Everybody wears your dress uniform. It's a whole ceremony. They do the inspirational video of like, all the helicopters and the K9 and everything. And it's like, it's like the opening to a movie. It's the premiere. It's amazing. So what you do is you're in the row and you get up and you go over to the stage. And beforehand, before we even got to this point, my name is impossible. No, I mean, my husband doesn't even pronounce my name correctly. It's like the most difficult name my parents could ever give anybody. So I spelled it phonetically for him. I said Mareek. That way, it's impossible. You get it right, Marique. So he's like, okay, I got it. I said, okay. So I'm on the line and you go up the stairs and I'm standing in front of the cop who's like, you're standing at attention. He's looking at you, making sure your uniform's good. I'm like, I'm hoping my gold buttons that always popped off those dress uniforms don't go flying off. It's like, please just maintain, I have tape on them, please stay. So he looks at me and I'm looking at him and I hear the guy go, Marquise Monzert. And I look at him and I go, that's not my fucking name. And I like left face and I was like, shake the hand and all the pictures. Oh yeah, that's great. And I'm like, this bastard can't even I've spelled it phonetically for him. There's not even an S in my name. There's no S. This guy says Marquise. So, my parents have the video. I go erase it. I don't even want to see it. I don't want to see the video. Get rid of it. It's not even, I don't even know. This is ridiculous. So it was like a moment of honor. And it was like,
Who was the commissioner when you got promoted?
Kelly was the commissioner.
Little Ray.
Yeah, yeah. So, but it was um who was it? Was it Bratton afterwards, I think, right? I forget.
Did Bratton come back?
He came back, so because he was the one that I shook his hands for when I got promoted. I think it was Bratton.
Okay.
Yeah.
When I got promoted under Safer in '97, and I was a nervous wreck. And you know how, so they call your name, you step up, there's a piece of tape, you're supposed to stop,
Yes.
salute
Yes.
first, shake his hand, get the photo, turn, and get your photo taken. I got so nervous, I went up there, I walked right past the tape, I shaked his hand, and Amon breaks out laughing. I stepped back, Safer's laughing. The two of them couldn't stop laughing. I'll show you the photo later on. It's the most awkward thing. So I'm curious the look on your face after he called you Marquise.
When I turned, I was pissed. I was like, this is bullshit, man. This is like my one, because I knew I didn't want to be a boss. Like I didn't want to be a
Right,
boss.
yeah,
I was
yeah.
gonna, like, this is my one promotion. I'm probably not going to make grade. Let's be honest. This is like my
Right.
one moment of shining glory where it's like, wow, your hard work is recognized, which is a very rare thing in the police department. Here we are. And it's Marquise Monzert. So when I get to him, I'm like, all right, yeah, smile for the camera. This is great, you bastards. And I'm like, okay, let's go get drunk because this is just, it is what it is. Let's get out of here.
Now our careers overlapped. I got hired in '87. I retired in 2007, and I was thinking you're the second person I've interviewed from your era. I'm retired now 17 years, and I'm out of New York City a long time. So I had some questions I wanted to ask you about what goes on in the job, and maybe you can answer them. So
Okay.
you were around with the body cams, correct?
Yeah, the tail end. Yeah.
Do those things? Do they turn them off in the locker room? Like, how does that work? Is those things fucking running 24/7? Like, how does that work?
So yeah, so supposedly, the rumor mill churns all kinds of stuff,
Right.
but supposedly you can break into those things remotely at any time. If it's not plugged into the dock, you can break into it. So, I mean, I didn't really have it too often. I only threw it on when I was going out towards the end. But the patrol guys, like, I would put signs up. I don't want those things in my office because you don't know if they're running, but they make like a beep sound when they're on. It's like beep beep every like minute, beep beep, so you know that it's on. Or like you'd get to a job or something, and I would go up and the cops would be like to let you
Right.
know like they're live, whatever. So and it was tough too because you're in the precinct. They would come in with the perp through the back door, and they'd walk them in, and all you hear is live, and it's like, all right, yeah.
There's always a way around something.
Just so that like whatever you're
That's smart.
doing, turn the TV off, put the Sunday football game off, don't let anybody see that on, put it away. So it was but yeah, there were a lot of stories of people getting caught doing weird things in police cars, and it would be on, and or in the bathroom and stuff, and they forgot to turn it off. I don't know how, because it makes a beep, but yeah, there was a lot of
Well, maybe
stories
if the
like that.
beep thing isn't working, or like you said, remotely somebody turns that thing
Turned
on. I mean, it can
Yeah.
embarrass somebody because I mean, cops talk. You know what I mean? It's the same as anybody in a job. They're complaining about their boss, or they have a gripe at home, saying something about their spouse. You,
Yeah, yeah.
you never know with those things.
That
Did
was
you?
with the radio, though. I mean, you would key the mic by accident. I remember one time, I guess I had the mic keyed, and I was pissed off at one of my bosses for some reason. And I'm like, this mother effer, this, that. And me and my partner are like going off on him for whatever the reason was. And I didn't know that I had my mic keyed on my radio. So the whole conversation is being broadcast through the 105 and the 113. So my phone starts blowing up and they're like, your mic is on, your mic is on. And then I hear Central yelling, open mic, check your radios. And I'm like, oh boy, this is not good.
When they key the radio now, does Central know which radio that belongs to?
Yeah, I think so. I think they fixed it. So if you can't, like the unauthorized transmissions and, all the whistling that used to go on and the stuff, you don't really do it anymore because once you key, I think they can tell whose radio is who, which takes the fun out of it. Because, like there was a few times you would say something stupid on the radio and they'd be like, like
Oh
making
yeah,
fun of
oh
you.
yeah. Well,
Yeah.
if a rookie got on the radio and he's talking too much, the old timers would jump all over you. Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
someone help
Or
that
like,
kid out.
yeah. Or like Central would be like getting snarky with you, or, having a problem, and you go on like, yeah, voice change, like voice change, you'd cue the mic. So that's all gone. It kind of ended with that.
Yeah, I'm sure I wouldn't recognize what goes on now. It's a different world. And so I was looking at your book, and I'm looking at the chapters of your book, and I mean, you've got the greatest chapters in the world. So just for our listeners out there, some of her chapters are called Garlic and Knives, Nuts of Steel, Pickle Tickle, and You Just Maced Me, and East Cupcake Dogfighting, which I know that's East Cupcake Long Island because that's what we used to call the kids from Long Island. Just by the chapter of these titles, I think this is going to be a really successful book.
Thank you. Thank you. I hope so. I mean, my intention was never to write it for like public consumption. Really, I wrote this book because my daughter was always asking me, Mommy, tell me a story about when you were a police officer and everything. And it's like, yeah, let me tell you about the time when, I kicked the guy in his nuts and he like, just stood there and stared at me. And, when I slipped on the guy's brains on the street and almost busted my ass. Or, it's like these aren't really age appropriate for like an 8-year-old. So I said, I'll write you a book. And when you get older, you can read it. And that turned into like a whole year of, you start talking to other cops or you start remembering jobs and then other jobs come up and like it's like a domino effect. So it took like a year of like compiling stories and memories and whatever. So by the time I was done, I'm like, this thing is like 400 and something pages. So it just went from there. I'm like, I may as well get a nice hardcover, make a cover of it and give it to her like as a nice book. And then it just went from there.
Well, it looks like your sarcasm bleeds into your writing, and that's a good thing because I'm the same way. I'm very sarcastic in my writing, and it makes the book real.
Yeah. Yeah, they wanted to like chat GPT it at first, the publishing company. It was like they
No,
wanted to do like it's a dark and stormy night and the streets were quiet and suddenly the radio chirped and
no.
silent and I'm like, nah man, that's not how I talk. If I write that, people are gonna call me and be like, who I don't even know who you are. I wanted this to be genuine from me.
And I know that you wrote. There's a chapter, or you touch upon some of the practical jokes that go on in the station house. Can you share a couple of those?
Yeah, oh gosh. Um so some of the fun ones, there was a blizzard, right? So it was the day tour crime guys were coming in. Their boss had been in like all day. He's like, I'm not going out, you guys go out. So his guys are out driving around in a foot of snow and blizzard conditions for 8 hours or whatever. And so he comes into our office because our office had a window that looked over the parking lot in the back where you would park your car when you're done with your tour and, grab your bags and stuff. So he comes in our office and he's busting their chops. Oh, you can't find a collar? You guys are useless. What's wrong with you? Like busting their chops through the window. And I hear them yelling, F you. So all of a sudden I start seeing snowballs getting thrown at the window and it's like hitting the side. It's not really hitting. So he's just standing there at the open window and he's like, you can't hit me. You guys throw like a bunch of girls. And next thing you know, I don't know who it was, but somebody launched a snowball, a monster ball, right through the window, hit him right in the face, boom, covered in snow. And I'm just like dying laughing. I'm like, you got what you deserve, guy. You're gonna poke the bear. You're gonna get freaking scratched. But another time, it was a different boss, but he had gotten wind that his guys, his crime guys, were going to play a prank on him. And I mean, I know it sounds like we don't do police work, but when you're in the specialty units, you kind of have downtime for the first hour. You're reading complaints, you're trying to get caught up on what's going
Right,
on, the
paperwork.
shootings that happened while you were gone, paperwork stuff. So there is a little bit of downtime with those units, but then you got to go out and you got to hit the streets and you got to, you got to find trouble. So during the downtime, he finds out that they have a bucket rigged at the door of the crime office. And when he comes in, he's going to get splashed with the water and the powder and all that stuff. Because that was another thing. You'd put the powder in the uniforms and ruin the uniforms and stuff. So somebody rats his boys out and tells him. And he's like, oh, yeah, they think they're going to get me. So he goes up and he kicks the door like it's a search warrant and comes in with a fire extinguisher and starts spraying his guys with a fire extinguisher. And at that time, it was a huge office, but it was broken up into little offices with like half walls. So these guys are like hopping walls, trying to get away from him, spraying the fire extinguisher. And he's just up on top of the wall spraying them. And you hear him begging, like, stop spraying me. And he's spraying them. And it was like, there was like the fire extinguisher crap all over the office. And I'm like, this is just, what is going on over there? You hear the screams. I said, oh my goodness. So it was the stuff like that that build like the camaraderie, like, and then there was like the rivalry, right? Like you had the cold case squad down the hall, which was next to my office, and then you had the squad guys. So there was always like the camaraderie going back and forth, and the fights and the whatever. So it was like Sunday morning, I think, and it was nice and quiet. So Sunday's like my admin day. I would just bang out all the reports and the fives and stuff that I had to do from the week. And I'm sitting in my office and I hear something and I look and my desk was next to the door and I see like the end of like a rifle, like a Nerf rifle sticking into the door frame. So I kick my door closed. I slam my door and lock it because I'm like, I don't know what's going on. At the same second, I hear boom, search warrant. And I hear there's 10 guys from the squad with Nerf guns letting rounds go at all the cold case guys. And they're just sitting ducks and they're just unloading Nerf gun balls at these guys. And then they just take off down the hall and they lock the squad and they were like gone for the rest of the day. But it was stuff like that that made it was fun because, and
Yeah.
it built bonds. It like reinforced the ball busting helped. It was good for building the bonds and the appreciation of each other. And it was like you tried to Tommy top. I mean, one time, and it wasn't like anybody took offense to it. I got into a fist fight with a guy once, and I mean, he got me. He gave me a nice knot on my head. It was like, I had like a unicorn thing sticking out of my head, but he got me good. So, I go to the hospital, I'm in the ambulance, and I said to my partner that rode me, I said, bro, take a picture of this thing, man. How bad is this? Because people are looking at me funny. And he's like, it's pretty fucking bad, dude. So he takes a picture, and it's like a giant knot, and my whole face is just swollen. It's like I got the black eye, and I'm like, oh man, that's disgusting. So I think he had texted himself a picture of this because I go out sick. I got a concussion. I'm out sick for a week. I come back. I walk into the precinct. I'm walking past the arrest processing room and I see like the square bouncing around on the screensaver. And I'm like, what the? And I look and it's the picture of me with the knot on my head as the screensaver for all the computers in the arrest processing room. I'm like, you scumbags.
That's
They got
great.
me. Yeah.
That's great. Like in auto
I mean, I'm
crime,
sure you had the same stuff.
well, we used to set off airbags under guys' desks. You'd rig them with a battery and a lead of wire. But if you we quickly found out if you didn't know what you were doing, you could hurt somebody with one of those airbags. If the airbag was too big, like you didn't want to use something like a Lincoln, a passenger side of a Lincoln, because that's a missile. One guy blew it through a plywood wall, so you kind of had to face them down. And sometimes it was just rigging it and leaving the wires there to scare the crap out of somebody. You didn't even have to set
Right.
the thing off to get your point across. Marique, I can't thank you enough for doing this interview, and I wish you all the luck in the world with your book. Can you please hold up a copy of it, please?
Thank you.
No, it's
20
great.
and out.
The book is called 20 and Out, a compilation of chaos experience while serving 20 years in the New York City Police Department. It's by Marique Bartolis. It's available on Amazon.com in paperback, ebook. Again, the name of the book is 20 and Out, a compilation of chaos experience while serving 20 years in the New York City Police Department. Thank you again so much. I really appreciate it.
I thank you, Vic. I can't thank you enough. I appreciate it. I had a great time. Thanks so much.
Oh, I'll
And
definitely
I'd
have
like
you
to
on
say,
again. And as
oh
always,
yeah, I'd
no,
love
I
that.
will. No, you're a great guest. And as always, I
Thank
want to
you.
thank, no, you're quite welcome. And as always, I want to thank everyone for tuning in, especially our listeners in Vienna, Virginia, Reno, Nevada. East Rutherford, New Jersey, home of the Meadowlands, Bettendorf, Iowa, and Battle Creek, Michigan. If you work in law enforcement and have an interesting criminal background, drop me a note on Twitter or Instagram at VicFerrari50. And if you enjoyed the content, please check out my Amazon author page. Type in my name, Vic, Ferrari like the car, where you can preview all my NYPD books for free, including NYPD Law and Disorder. If you're watching on YouTube, please hit and like the subscribe button. Thank you again, and I'll see everybody next week.
Thanks so much.